Hi, everybody. This is Scott Haskin, and I've been meaning to do a review of iZotope's VocalSynth for a while. I'm kind of glad now, though, that I didn't do it when I had intended because there's so many demos and walkthroughs and things about it now. There's a really, really great course on groove3.com about VocalSynth 2. But what I want to do is something a little bit different because I like to think outside the box. And I thought it would be interesting to try VocalSynth on some things that aren't vocals or aren't even a voice at all. I did use it on my Haunted Holidays 2 album, and I'm working with it a little bit on my Haunted Holidays 3 album that'll be out next year. But what I want to do now is try it on some things, an experiment and see what you can do with it. The first thing I recorded, and these are all just quick threw down some sounds, so they're not pristine recordings, they're not great performances or anything. This is just to get the idea of what maybe we can do with VocalSynth as a effect beyond the voice. Obviously, it's geared towards the voice, so it's going to have the most stability, the cleanest sound with the intended use. But thinking a little bit outside of that, I wanted to work with this. So here's just a piano. So just a simple little piano. And now if we were to put the vocal synth on that, and let's just say just as it pulls up, just using the vocoder, which at least that comes up for me when I first turn vocal synth on, and then you can manipulate it from there. Let's see what that same piano would sound like just as with the vocal synth. So obviously completely different. And that could be now a new instrument that you can use. And then, of course, this is just the standard. There's different setups with it. So all kinds of different sounds that you can get. And that's just the vocoder. Let's say that we wanted to try this and see what that would sound like. So this is something that maybe you can use to create your own different synthesizers and different things. You can use it for layering, where you could have the piano as a straight piano patch and then maybe do a second track where there's a vocal synth effect underneath of it so to maybe bring out some interesting layered sounds. But let's move on from the piano now. And this one was interesting. Now, I've tried to do this video a couple of times, and during the course of doing the video, I ran into some issues with recording because I've never done that before where I've tried to capture a microphone and the screen, and I had to learn how to do that. So my original intention was to just do this for the first time in the video and experiment with it, but that didn't really work out. I've actually done this about 8 or 9 times to get this all to work, and so now I'm recording it. But what I found is that some of the sounds, because again, everything's EQ'd sort of to work with voice, so not everything's going to work or sound well as a plugin. So the organ, for example, I did not like the way that it worked with the organ, but let's see what you guys think. So that's just a simple Hammond B3 with no distortion on it, which I typically put a little bit of distortion, but for the purpose of the demo, decided to just go with a clean sound. And let's go back to the vocoder. Let's go to that one this time and see how this sounds using that. So pretty grungy. Again, I'm sure that there are some uses for that, but for most purposes, that's going to be kind of limiting. Yeah, so it's really kind of grainy. Maybe for some granular effects could be really cool. But again, that might be one that's a little bit limiting for most purposes. So moving on from the organ, let's go to a violin and we'll see how it works there. First, we'll turn it off and just listen to the violin on its own. A violin is sort of a lyrical instrument. I like to think of it as almost like a vocal because it's very expressive and really has a lot of depth to it. And so maybe let's try the talkback on this one and see, or the talkbox, I'm sorry, on this one and see how that sounds. So lots of interesting possibilities with that one. You can also, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, you can also do any combination of these items right across the top here. You can do multiples at different levels and see how they sound together. One potential use that I really see for this could be EDM music. I see especially opportunities for layering in maybe even rock music. If you're into the sort of synthesizer sound in some rock styles. But yeah, I definitely see some use for that there. Again, it's something that's really going to be experimental depending on what you're looking for and what you like. But this certainly takes it beyond the standard the standard vocal and vocal idea. So let's check out what a marimba would sound like. Here's the marimba by itself. Like I said, the recordings themselves are a little bit rough. I just kind of went and flew through just recording some sounds so that we could play with it and see what we can get. So let's try the Polyvox on this and see how that sounds. Okay, kind of a little bit carnival-ish, I think. And then, of course, you've got all these parameters within the individual channel or individual effect that you have here. Now let's try the talk box on that. Doesn't even sound close to the same thing. That's really interesting how it could take a percussive instrument and play it almost in a vocal melodic way. And I like kind of how it almost has a little bit of a wobble to it, like it's the record that you're playing it from is a little bit warped. That's pretty neat. So so that would be the marimba, and then let's move on to, I'm going to skip the drums for the moment, and we're going to go down to Vapor, which is one of my favorite synths. I really like Vapor. It's been taken off the market. It was never upgraded when things were converted from one engine to another. There's arguments about who owns it and whatever. It's all a shame because I think it's a great thing. I really like it, and here's just how it is playing. Okay, so this has already got a little bit of grit to it, so it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out since the VocalSynth seems to be adding a little more grit in general. So let's start with the BioVox and see how this goes. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, so it kind of follows along that, it's really the choppiness of that is really hitting hard, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, that's causing some interesting artifacts using that particular uh, setup, and that's just the CompuVox. Now, again, if you click down under the different setups, obviously you're going to get different effects, and then you can do that across all five. Not even going into all the effects down at the bottom, which you really do have some good ones. Especially that ring modulator is really nice. The distort is actually nice and clean. Some really good things to choose from here. I like to play with the width a little bit, because I like things to sound a little bit wider when I'm using pad sounds or doing any kind of like new age or relaxation music. Haven't really used the VocalSynth on that at this point, but definitely could see something being used there. Now let's take a quick look again before we get to the drums. Let's take a quick look at a bass guitar. Yeah, so that's a little bit of distortion in there already. Let's see what happens when we put the VocalSynth on it, and let's try the vocoder. I'm not sure quite where that noise is coming from. Must be something about that track my system isn't liking at the moment. So let's go back up to drums and we'll check that out. Go ahead and mute that, see where I'm not sure where that's coming from. But now if we listen to the drum track that I've got, this is just a basic kick snare, and there's some toms in the later section. So just basic little beat, nothing too special there. And if we put the VocalSynth on it, let's try the BioVox. So kind of maybe can create some synth drums or some interesting layered effects out of that. And then if we move that down to the cymbals, and these again are just basic. Hi-hats, crash, nothing too crazy there. Let's try that same last effect on the cymbals. So you can really make some kind of alien type sounds with that. You can make something kind of otherworldly and maybe paranormal. Maybe you could do something space oriented. Lots of possibilities. So while the VocalSynth is designed for voice and manipulating voice, and it does it very, very well, I really like working with it. It's one of those things where I could just get so lost in playing with it and manipulating it and trying different things that I kind of forget that I'm actually working on a project, and can kind of sidetrack me a little bit. But I love having so many options, and the more you work with it, the more you can kind of zero in on what you want or know what might be a little bit out there to go to first to experiment with it. So I think that you could definitely use this for things beyond just vocals, but it's really going to have a specific use for you because it's really not designed for this kind of stuff. But again, I like to look outside of the box and look at different possibilities and options. And while this wouldn't be an effect I would use on instruments often, I could see it doing some nice underlying things to thicken up other sounds. Like you heard with the marimba or with the piano, maybe use it just very gently and mix it in very lightly just to add just a little bit of a touch that's beyond the scope of what you normally hear. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. And my suggestion to you is go out and try some different things and see what works with you. But even just using it for vocals, fantastic product. Once again, home run iZotope. Thank you.